Not quite for CLG, though.
So on the other side now, Cloud9, they've got themselves a Nasus and a Rumble. So we are going to see that Rumble up in the top lane. They're leaving their AD carry and support for last, and it's their turn to pick.
And this is Cloud9. These are the champions they've been picking since the promotion tournament almost. They're very confident with these. Meteos, even though he's known for his Zac, has played just as much Nasus this entire time. Even though Balls hasn't had the most successful laning phases with Rumble, he is on point with his Rumble ultimate. So there's no way CLG's disrupting them from comfort whatsoever.
On the other side, CLG's waiting to disrupt for comfort because their last pick's going to be their mid laner, most likely.
Yeah, they're actually letting Link pick what he wants going up against, which they now know is most likely going to be a Jace. So we'll see what he decides to throw out at that. There's no Karthus for Link, but there's still things like Orianna, even Xerath is something they've had a lot of success with because Link's champion pool is very diverse.
So what are we seeing from the CLG composition so far? We've got Jarvan and Shen, as well as that Caitlyn over the other side. We see the full composition for Cloud9.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on the Cloud9 composition first, only because that Ashe Zyra isn't their style, actually. Even though you can get the initiations from Ashe arrows, which might be what they're going for, Zyra and Ashe are disengaged champions. They're long kite champions. They stop the other team from aggressing on them. And Cloud9 is all about turret diving and fast pressure. So I really wonder what they have planned with those two picks because obviously they're not taking this CLG game lightly.
No, it does look like they maybe want to try to contain and control that Jarvan and Shen and Thresh. If they get collapsed upon, maybe that Zyra is going to help them out, knock them up in the air, buy them time to react.
Zyra, many teams have said, and I personally think one of the hardest champions, the hardest champion in the game to dive against. If you're a heavy, everyone dive comp, you pick Zyra. And CLG's now trying to pick ways of diving and dodging around that if they want to dive in anyway if they go with the Zyra.
Do you still think that's a pick? I mean, it'll work better than the Orianna, have the ability to dash around, but there's still the possibility of being rooted in place or knocked up by that Zyra. It's a risky play.
It is, but Link's turning himself into a risky player. In the spring split, Link was always safe. He was always playing the support jungler, the support mid lanes.
Yeah.
Now he's more about carrying, and I do like this because he's trying to take advantage of the immobility of Ashe and get around all of the move blocks that Cloud9 is going to be throwing at them. While it's not a super late game composition by CLG, it's something that I do think fits their playstyle.
And one of the things that's going to work into his favor is just how squishy that Zyra, Ashe, and Jace can be in those early stages. If he's able to get a leg up, get some early kills on the board, it will definitely play into their favor.
This is a game where Link has to carry a little bit. He really has to put the team on his back, and he's done that a couple times this split. Him and Yen have really changed the complexion of the CLG franchise, where it's not just double lift anymore. It's all the guys.
So now we're talking about Nian. He's got himself that supportive top laner in the form of Shen. We've seen him carry hard at MLG, if I recall correctly, and you know he's really grown into his position with CLG over the course of the split. And a reactive champion like Shen, how much of an impact is he going to have in this game?
I think he can still have a pretty big impact. We've seen people like Voyboy get extremely strong scores on Shen. We actually saw, I think it was against CLG, Zion Spartan building 400 armor and just running at 80 carries on Shen. They can have a large impact in the game, but it takes a while. So it's a good thing they're on CLG.
Yeah, going to be able to at least farm themselves up. So this is the second game of the day. It is, of course, Cloud9 taking on CLG. We will be jumping into the matchup very, very shortly. This is the third time these teams are meeting.
Yeah, and I can't wait because the first two games have been two of the best CLG games of the season. Cloud9 considers them a very large rival. Cloud9 right now is the best team in North America. CLG wants to take that from them, but they got a long ways to go.
Yeah, and they definitely want to try, you know, work themselves closer and closer to those top spots. If you can guarantee a first or second place, it helps you towards those world playoff positions, which were just announced earlier today. Top 3 teams in NA will get them.
And CLG wants to be one of those teams. Most of it will be decided in the playoffs, but the seeding is ever so important for these guys. And honestly, games during the season, even though they may not 100% matter where you finish exactly in the standings, the experience they get against these teams and the confidence they'll get is huge.
So what we do see right now, Cloud9, they've grouped up as a 5-man working towards the red buff area of CLG. Whereas CLG, on the other hand, they've stacked up and they're heading to the bottom tri-bush. So looking like the potential to just trade buffs.
Surprising, I was watching the Machinima follows Cloud9 around MOG video, and it was actually had some insight on Cloud9 planning level 1 against CLG. And Meteos was saying, I actually feel like shallow wards are safer against CLG because CLG loves to group up as 5 and mob around, so I don't want to take the risk of invading deep. But they prepare differently for every game. Cloud9 grouped up as 5 this time because they think their level 1 fight is stronger, and they got deep wards into CLG, but they're staying grouped as 5 because they still know that CLG does the same thing.
And you have to feel that they probably would have watched that video themselves and talked about it and said, well, if everyone's watching that, maybe we can, counter mind game our opponents. Effectively, what both teams have just done is placed very deep wards on opposite numbers of the jungle. I think even the same number of wards, but they haven't necessarily taken anything away just yet.
And the starts are still different, even if the wards are mirrored, because Big Fat LP is looking to steal a red, whereas Cloud9 might delay steal a red. If I'm guessing right here, I feel like they're just going to trade invades and invade each other's jungle, even if it's not at the same time, and they're going to just kind of walk away with this both junglers double buff. We'll see, though.
If any jungler is going to be able to handle his jungle being invaded and buffs being stolen, it is going to be Meteos.
Yeah, he's done it before. In the very first game, we'll touch back on it once again. Very first game of the season for Cloud9, Dignitas stole both of his buffs. He went and pushed lane, killed the tower, and Cloud9 crushed. So he knows what to do if things get mixed up.
And he's one of the most impressive junglers out of both regions right now, NA and EU. He just seems to find a way to impact games all the time.
Early gank, though, from Big Fat LP, not going straight to blue. They might get him.
So the knock-up, he flashes over the knock-up, Balls gets away. What great reaction timing. The millisecond the taunt was out.
And that was CLG trying to chain him before the flash rather than wait post-flash. It's a bold move, but it was just fractions of seconds that saved Balls there, because Big Fat LP could have waited post-flash and probably gotten the kill, but they thought they'd be able to get the knock-up chain. They just weren't quite so fortunate.
So, flash down, Big Fat LP on his traditional early ganking style of gameplay. If he does decide to roll around to that bottom lane again, he may be able to pick himself up a kill onto Balls. What we do see, though, is the duo laners are sitting in the top lane for both teams.
Yeah, I want to see how this matchup really pans out, because Ashe, even though she's not a strong laner later on, early game, the crit from her passive and just the range of the volley actually makes her very potent at harassing people. Not to mention, Zyra as a support has one of the smoothest and longest range auto attacks at 575, so that is actually a pretty decent lane for Cloud9 up top. May be able to push double lift out a bit, we'll see though.
So we'll keep an eye on that. In the meantime, Big Fat LP is trying to set up his second gank of the game. Realizes that high is a little bit too safe at the moment. He hasn't quite overextended far enough for Big Fat LP to invade on that position. He does run himself into a Meteos, and a slower start now that we've settled into the laning phase.
And there's a lot of mystery in this game too, because we look at the river and there's very few wards. All the wards were expended going inside the enemy junglers, but at the same time, the teams knew that the junglers would just be trading each other's buffs for a while and that they could kind of be safe in lane. But because of just the one gank from Big Fat LP, because of the wards within the jungle, the ganks haven't been that frequent.
Not impressive right now. So a start, Lemonation putting some decent damage under Chowster before he eats a Pult of a Peacemaker and dropped relatively low. In terms of the ganks, Meteos now thinking he might be able to sniff something out, but simply put, Nian's actually pretty safe. He's taunted in though.
Oh man, flash taunt from Big Fat LP as well.
So Balls does get knocked up in the air. Now they've turned the pressure onto Big Fat LP. He's a lower level. He's the first one to fall. Double buffs transferred over to Balls, and that is first blood picked up. Meteos was thinking about keeping the pressure up, but decided against it.
And that's one of the dangers of having no river wards for CLG. Big Fat LP flashed to try to get that knock-up, but it gave him no escape.
So we see in that top lane, Lemonation is the first one to fall. Sneaky has been exhausted. That's now been worn off as a flash forward from Double Lift comes out. He's dropped to 110 HP. He does survive though, and they managed to pick up a kill in the top lane, so immediate reply from CLG.
Double Lift and Chowster manning up in the 2v2 to make up for the 2v2 that happened in the bottom lane that actually went against them. So Sneaky and Lemonation getting a little bit punished, being too far up in the lane and having nowhere to necessarily retreat to after Chowster made a good play.
And the power of that Dark Passage, the Lantern Shield, really helping out Double Lift and Chowster. In the bottom lane, even though Balls was able to pick up that kill, he is behind on CS. So we'll see if he can make use of those double buffs to give him the additional pressure he's looking for.
And I think a lot of that just had to do with Nian at level 1 when Balls flashed out of the gank. He just got an edge on him because of that early action, and Meteos, his response was the counter gank. So when all said is done, both ganks were somewhat successful, and it leads to a fairly even lane.
So what we do see is the gold is completely even between the two teams. A little bit of a gold disparity, and the first one to back in that top lane is Sneaky, of course, thanks to his support Elimination going down. He's picked himself up that second Doran's Blade as well as his boots, but he's a fair amount of CS and a kill behind Caitlyn, so we'll see what Double Lift decides to pick up.
Double Lift's going to keep continuing to bully that guy. BF sword, no sustain, really just going big.
So CLG Link, he's going to be able to be forced to use his ultimate to get to safety. The wither came down from Meteos, but it's very difficult to gank an Ahri.
And Meteos is being efficient with his ganks, because even though that didn't kill Link, getting the ultimate down gives so much freedom to the other lanes. What Ari loves doing at level 6 is roaming to the AD carry support lane and getting double kill on some level 4 squishies. They can't do that anymore because Meteos' timing was so perfect.
So well played, good map presence and map awareness from Cloud9, buying their AD carry and support lane, maybe a little bit more safety before the opponents roll up there. And Doublelift is definitely going to be looking to stomp in authority on this lane. You pointed out the BF sword picked up, no sustain in there without his runes and masteries, and we'll just have to see exactly how or where he can get that authority.
He's got 34 more attack damage than Sneaky right now, as well as that Piltover Peacemaker just slicing through people on Cloud9 right now. And Meteos' counter ganking for this lane in particular actually isn't that potent, so Cloud9 has to be very careful not to get caught in a Chouster death sentence if they don't want Doublelift to really put a stamp on this lane.
And Chouster's also put himself a pink ward up there in the top bush, so he knows that his opponents have no vision, and he's got a little bit of extra time to react to that Nasus that literally has to walk at you to gank.
And they can't come through the river. Since CLG has both mid lane and top lane wards, he can't come through CLG's jungle either. And I think Meteos is doing the smart thing. He's saying, yeah, that lane's kind of lost, but my ganks in bottom lane and mid lane have both been very successful, so Meteos is going back to those places, or he's just going to farm his jungle for a while.
So Niantonso on this bottom lane, he gets a good taunt into balls. CS numbers has evened up a little bit, picked himself up 2 null magic mantles to try and deal with all of that penetration of the haunting guys.
And because he gave up to kill the balls, he's just a little bit pushed back. But Nian is a survivor in lane. He knows how to get his farm, and he is great in team fights. So that's what CLG Nian is waiting for.
But it's definitely something that he's going to need to do, especially with that Shen getting a couple of good taunts onto the members of Cloud9, and not necessarily the most mobile of teams. So if they stack up, it'll be a good taunt possibility.
And that was such a timely ward by Nian over the grass to be able to catch Meteos' Nasus walking by, because he was going to try to go solo the Dragon on Nasus. That's what Nasus do at level 6.
Right now in the top lane, Sneaky is going to manage to dodge away from that ace, and then Piltover Peacemaker goes down. Doublelift gets dropped thanks to the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. They trade 1-for-1. Support picks up the kill, and the passive comes out from Zyra. Sneaky and Lemon Nation pulling the 2v2 back thanks to some brilliant play.
Even if people are offering you a ride on a lantern, you don't always take it, because sometimes it's really dangerous. He lanterned in to turret range, then got hit with an Ash Arrow, and allowed Sneaky to come back, get a kill where they really had no business getting something, and it burned the Shen ult from Nian, which pays off for Cloud9 with the Dragon.
And that Shen ult came down just a tad late. You have to feel maybe could have been a little earlier. Link in the mid lane's jumped onto high. Niantonso's helping out as well. Link's burning from the Ignite. He's going to be able to get to safety. Ooh. And we see the brilliant Wither from Meteos. That slowed Nian down, managing to save High's life. He's got double buffs up, but not enough damage to take down Niantonso. And they just trade. Both mid laners going incredibly low.
And the fights just continue. Cloud9 trying to aggress everywhere.
So Balls is overheated. He's got the Ignite ticking down to 50 HP. The next tick should be able to do it. Balls picks up Big Fat LP for his second kill of the game.
Last tick of Ignite for Balls, and this is a great laning phase for him on Rumble, which is actually something we don't see too frequently. This could mean a lot of trouble. Look at that. 4 picks on Rumble, 100% win rate. Cloud9 very confident in their abilities right now.
And he's doing so well at bullying that Shen around. He's going to be able to go and spend some of that money, plus that additional kill gold in just a moment, as High returns to this mid lane with his triple longsword build.
And we got to realize how High and Link are just battling it out right now. 75 to 75. Now just one and back again, back and forth. I'm losing track of these numbers. They're too close. But High and Link are 2 of the best mid laners here in North America, and Link needs to find ways, I feel, to either get kills on High or get kills roaming, because CLG really needs that help right now.
Yeah, at this point in time, High's just keeping him in his base, keeping him shut down just a little bit. I didn't see who actually got that big Wraith. Right now, High's doing fairly well at least maintaining control of that very mobile champion in Ari. 15,000 gold to 13,500. Cloud9 with that Dragon. It's really the only difference as far as gold is concerned.
And Big Fat LP is still sitting around for ganks, but again, Meteos is there for the counter. And we have to give so much credit to Meteos right now, because he's been there to counter Big Fat LP's ganks while having a 20 farm advantage on him, and he's just tracking him around the map while out farming him.
Yeah, he's reading him like in a book, but when you know that your opponent's going to be doing that,
another arrow.
Crystal Arrow comes down, Doublelift has the first one to get stunned. He 90 calibers away. They turn their attention over to Chouster as the Dark Passage goes down. There's a lot of damage on the Chouster. The shield is up. It will go down to Sneaky. And another outplay, 2v2.
One of the great benefits here of the Zyra Ashe lane is you land one crowd control, it guarantees the other. Sneaky landed the arrow, it let Lemon Nation land his Stranglethorns, and then the knockup. Such a good chain, but maybe they stayed too long.
Cataclysm goes down, Bigfeld LP is trapped in his own wall, maybe forgetting for a second that you can turn it off. Takes a lot of damage down. Lemon Nation and Sneaky not afraid of this Caitlyn-Jarvan combination. They're keeping the pressure up.
And this is the game Cloud9 wants to play. While all that was happening, Balls is just destroying Nien.
Balls has gone so deep into CLG enemy territory. He picks up a kill onto Nien Tonsa. That's his third of the game. And his second, that was just a straight up 1v1. Balls is doing fantastic.
Plus, we look in the mid lane, and everyone on CLG is getting pushed back right now. Everything is going Cloud9's way, and they're not letting off the gas pedal.
5 kills to 2. They've extended that gold lead to 3,000 gold now. The tower did drop in the bottom lane, and it looks like High and Meteos are going to put so much pressure onto this mid tower. With that Siphoning Strike damage, this will go down quickly.
So I need to see now what CLG tries to do to counter this, because they've lost their mid and bottom turrets. They really want something to happen out top, and they know that Cloud9's missing a lot of stuff. Can they get anything?
The knockup does not land. Sneaky carries on getting away. The slow plants are out. He does get caught by the death sentence. Flay pulls him backwards. Charleston and Doublelift doing the best they can to chase him down. Ignite is actually on Doublelift. He's forced backwards. A flash forward comes out from Big Fed LP to secure the kill.
Here comes Cloud9.
The counter gank is on. High, and Meteos are going to take this one to the skies as they dive in there. Jarvan slides to safety. Meteos has got the wither down. 1 or 2 more attacks. That's him drop. In the background, Link has now joined the party. He's picked up a kill into Elimination. He weeded out the opponents and have only kill on the board for him.
But even when CLG looked to be able to secure a kill early on to Sneaky, you could see the apprehension from Doublelift. He was pulling back early because he knew Cloud9 was coming. They had vanished from mid lane, and they were going to make that counter gank happen. CLG forced into a play, but once again, Cloud9 one step ahead because they're the ones dictating to CLG what CLG has to do, and that's giving them the advantages they need.
Absolutely advantage in every single metric, in gold, in kills, in tower, and in C, actually behind in CS. So all of this pressure,
the one thing CLG does.
One thing that's not working in their favor is this farm.
And it's what CLG is almost over-focusing on in this situation here, because Nien has always kept up his farm. Link is almost never behind in farm. Doublelift is known for being able to get the minion kills, but they're losing in the other areas. Turrets, dragons, kills, just not able to keep up with what Cloud9 does. Cloud9 does not prioritize CS the way that CLG does.
Talking about the dragon, that should be respawning relatively soon, actually, because it was a fairly early level 6 dragon there by Meteos and Balls. So we'll see as they decide to maybe set up some vision and get some control over it. Right now, once again, it's all about Cloud9. They're making the plays, and they're making the counter plays to which CLG is forced to react.
And like clockwork, they're getting the pink wards down where they need to be, and they're moving towards CLG's jungle once they have the outer 3 shells of turrets down. Even not quite getting the blue steel. No, I believe Link was the one to get that. He tried for the smite, smited it, but didn't get the last hit.
Yeah, smite wasn't even available for Big Fat LP either, so he wasn't able to actually get that one down. So even denying the buffs now to CLG, it's a difficult position to be in with a 7,000 gold difference. Here's the timer on your clock, 30 seconds up.
And here's the question for Cloud9. Are they going to die with this 6,000 gold? And they are!
And there's the answer to your question. They've immediately dropped down Big Fat LP. He's been weathered up and gets away with 300 HP. Link, however, is going to jump into the party, manage to pick up the first kill of the game, but they're going to trade 1 kill for a tower. If Cloud9 can disengage, it'll be worth it for them as Elimination gets charmed, held in place, taunted, locked down. 2 kills for 0 in favor of CLG.
So that's why it was a question of if Cloud9's going to dive or not, because their composition isn't built for it like it usually is. Sure, they had the Ash Arrow to get the initiation in, but it wasn't a huge amount of burst damage, and yeah, they weren't even able to get a kill. Just the snapback CLG needed, and now CLG really has to secure this dragon because it's one of the things that can start pulling their gold back.
So it'll close their gap just a little bit, and if they can manage to react to those aggressive plays and put some more kills and money on the board, they can start to close some of this item disparity that we're currently seeing. So first dragon of the game picked up by CLG, and they're definitely not out of it yet.
Not quite. And this is a little bit similar to the Cloud9 defeat that they suffered to CLG in week 2 here, where Cloud9 had the pressure, they got the first 3 or 4 turrets down, but they couldn't secure all the dragons. And that was another slight misplay there where CLG was able to sneak back a dragon. Cloud9 needs to have the focus on those objectives and not dive in those specific scenarios in the future where CLG can lock up buffs.
So we do see right now CLG trying to put some pressure onto what they're hoping is the first tower of the game. Doublelift gets rooted in place by Zyra. He's going to be able to get away unscathed though, as there simply wasn't enough support around Cloud9 to engage on double lift. Link toying with the idea of trying to pick off that AD carry. He's picked himself up a Giant's Belt as well as an Amplifying Tome.
And we might have a fight brewing if Elimination can land anything. Equalizer tries to cut CLG off.
It's going to slow them down. That's a lot of damage onto double left. We do see the flash into the Wither, but that's immediately cleansed off, so Caitlyn's got away. Another flash is burned as an accelerated shock blast gets so much damage down into Chowster, but that's a lot of summoner spells burned.
And a nice disengage there by CLG. It's Cloud9 not necessarily having the diving capabilities that they bring with some other compositions. This is where that Zac ban really starts to show for CLG, because Meteos, sure, he can flash Wither. That's nothing compared to the Elastic Slingshot and Let's Bounce of Zac.
No, the power of that is simply not there, especially when double lift is running that cleanse. So it is on cooldown, and what we did see Sneaky Elimination doing earlier in the game was making use of that cooldown being unavailable and securing themselves a kill. So with that knowledge, we may see them going aggressive on double lift in the not too distant future.
And we can't forget about what happened in the first 14 minutes of the game before Cloud9 lost the dive fight and gave up the Dragon to CLG, because it's still showing here. It's still 8 kills to 6, CLG still hasn't taken a turret, and Cloud9 still has a very large lead, plus the first 80 carry to an Infinity Edge in Sneaky. So Cloud9 definitely still wants to take fights, just not quite as aggressively as before.
Yeah, their composition doesn't lend themselves to it, but we'll see where they can find themselves an opportunity. We're in this sort of slowdown phase where it's too risky to go deep into your opponent's jungle. You can see at Cloud9, they don't have enough wards to really make those plays stick. And CLG, on the other hand, they've got very good defensive wards.
And it's because they know where Cloud9's been trying to go for them. Right now, since Cloud9 got pushed back a little bit and then is trying to regain their footing, the only place Cloud9 wants wards is in CLG's jungle. But CLG only wants wards in their own jungle as well. Guess which is closer? CLG gets to ward their jungle. Cloud9 hasn't made an invade in a while. I think Cloud9 could get that control back. It's just going to take some time.
So they're still farming themselves up. Leandry's Torment completed there for balls. He's picked himself up a Giant's Belt as well. Just skipping the side of double lift. Does interrupt the recall at the very least. And High's going to carry on chasing and poking down. Doing very well with that Jace Brutalizer, as well as the Manum unit completed already.
He hasn't had to itemize against Link's Ahri, even if Link's Ahri is out farming him a little bit. So I think in the long run, that's the right choice for High, because he really cares about that late game siege poke that Jace brings.
In the previous game, we've seen Mandatory Cloud picking up a Hex Drinker as well, which is not, I don't want to say it's not traditional, but it's something we're seeing a little bit more in these fringe cases when you do have that ability part damage to deal with.
And I'm actually realizing here, Cloud9 has Sneaky off farming the jungle, while CLG might have 5 people defending that turret on top, which is actually prompting Cloud9 to peel back a little bit. This is a little bit unlike Cloud9 in the past, where if they want to dive, they're just going, or they have another person pushing a lane and sucking someone from CLG off. But with Cloud9, Sneaky just jungling here, they're waiting a little bit for something. They're not trying to force right now.
It's a possibility that they may be underestimating the gold lead that they have, or the power position that they might be in, or they just simply don't want to take the risks of moving into your opponent's jungle without vision and, you know, without really knowing where they can come from. And
they can still be thinking, is CLG our kryptonite? Because remember, this is the loss Cloud9 had to CLG was very impacting on their approach. It was their first ever loss in the LCS, and they barely beat them the second time they played them. So even though they had such a strong early game, it's got to be weighing on the minds of a young team like this.
Yeah, you talked about it during the preamble and the build-up to this matchup, where if this team is not 100% confident in dealing with this opponent, it affects every single decision you make. You hesitate when you attack, you question your decision-making and your calls in-game. And right now it's showing. However, after this period of passivity, 5 members of Cloud9, they've grouped up and stacked up in the bottom lane.
So they've gotten out of the jungle, decided to push, and CLG's not quite in position to fight, but they really don't want to give up even more turrets. I wonder if CLG fights this one off. It depends on how much poke they take from Jace, whether or not CLG is able to engage something here.
So we do see those shock blasts coming down, not dealing as much damage as High would hope. He's maybe going to need to pick up that last Whisper before it's really going to do a whole lot.
As long as Nien is in the front taking these hits and they're not reaching the CLG squishies, it's going to be all right. That can't happen more than once, otherwise they're going to lose this turret.
Cast a curse, the moment you say it, double lift eats himself a shock blast. Chowster takes 2, and that drops him down to a third of his HP. Link has picked himself up the Arm Guard as well as a Rylai's Crystal Scepter, really feeling like the slow and the kiting is more important than upfront damage.
And the barrage is what's actually stopping them right now. It doesn't matter for slow and kiting right now because Link can't get in the first place. It almost seems like unless Cloud9 does a straight up dive, CLG's not fighting them unless it's on an inhibitor turret, because that was I mean, I want to say uncontested because CLG tried to contest it. They just got hit by too many shock blasts.
Yeah, they simply didn't show their faces. They didn't land any of their own damage themselves. And they were just munching all of those bullets that Jace was shooting out. 10 seconds on the clock. This is the third dragon of the game. The second that Cloud9 want to pick up.
And Cloud9's in-game adaptation is one of the things that's given them the first place here in North American LCS. Just the last dragon, they dove a turret they were sieging before dragon and gave it up to CLG. This time, they recognized the cooldown of the dragon, said, sure, maybe we could try to dive, but the dragon's here, so let's just take that and we can dive whenever we want. Cloud9 gets their second dragon in the game. Now they might think to dive.
So we'll see. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow is up. Sneaky's going to look to aim that one out. Just going to scare Link away. I held my breath for a second. It's like, is he going to do it? Decided against it.
Pretty dangerous to try to land an ult on a triple dash. Fox and Ahri right there, so maybe they'll try to dive on this inhibitor turret, but they haven't shopped in a really long time, and there's 1,000 gold or more on everyone on CLG right now.
Yeah, there's the numbers on your screen right now. Look at the difference in the top lane. About 1,500 between them. Doublelift has taken so much damage from that poke. Absolutely every single member of Cloud9 has the ability to pick up another item or maybe complete some of them. Link doing relatively well with that fairly tanky start to his build. He's not being bursted down quite as hard.
And right now, CLG poked back a little bit there. You can see they got some damage onto high. CLG's trying to wait for Nien to get these side turrets down because this is gold generation. As long as CLG doesn't lose this inhib, it's okay for them.
That's the first tower of the game for CLG.
Oh, they're going in!
It's been channeled. Cataclysm goes down for the king. Yelled by Jarvan. Balls is going to be able to deal so much damage, forcing Big Fat LP to drop. First victim of the fight. Second to fall is going to be Nienton, so he's dropped in the background as they turn their focus to Doublelift. A massive siphoning strike shuts him down on his spot. Wither ticking away on Link. He's just being burned away by Meteos' passive. They have traded kills back and forth. A 4 for 2.
Lemon Nation's Zyra ultimate in that fight was perfect. We talked about how hard it was to dive on top of a Zyra, and the instant Big Fat LP dove in with Nien, they got hit by the Zyra ultimate and a Rumble ult. It almost killed both of them right off the bat. It obliterated the CLG frontline, and it made Doublelift immediately vulnerable for the rest of Cloud9 to dive through. That was a perfect fight for Cloud9 as they picked up the inhibitor turret.
Crucially for CLG, the kills they did pick up allowed them to defend the inhibitor itself. So at the very least, there's no super minions to deal with, but they're in a very difficult position right now.
They have so much work to do right now, and it doesn't help that they can't initiate fights onto Cloud9. They need to wait for Cloud9 to come for them.
So at this moment in time, we're going to pull up a replay of this final fight. Jeff, talk me through the specifics of that Zyra ultimate and Rumble again.
Yeah, I just need to see it again. Look at how it locked them down on top of the Rumble ult with the Equalizer going down. Sneaky had no threat on him. It allowed everyone on Cloud9 to get onto Doublelift immediately because there was no front line there for CLG, and it really showed.
And you see they just carry on chasing, cleaned that one up, balanced out that tower that was, picked up in the background. And the thing that was even more impressive, they did all that through the Stand United of Shane. He put that down on Big Fat LP, and it just simply wasn't powerful enough.
Just gone. And a lot of that has to do with Big Fat LP not having his aura items yet. There's a Runic Bulwark on Meteos. There's not even an Aegis of the Legion yet on Big Fat LP. Yes, objectives, all that jazz, but also double minion kills for Meteos because he's out farming Big Fat LP like we'd usually see, but he's not getting outpaced in ganks.
Yeah, playing very, very well at this moment in time. And Meteos, his presence and his just timing of his opponents and understanding of where they're going to be, what he needs to do to counter them is absolutely phenomenal right now. As we've talked about already, CLG still doing well to farm, but now they're losing their buffs as they have no control of this bottom half of the map.
And this doesn't even have to be a dive for Cloud9. They know they have the inhibitor turret gone. They can just go for the inhibitor at this point. They have full armor pen right now on high, so those shock blasts are crushing when they hit Doublelift and Big Fat LP. He can't lifesteal up everything before Cloud9 decides to go.
So the pressure goes in, Charm goes down onto Meteos, he's held back in place. Death Sentence was up, but it caught Nasus. That's the last target you want to hit, and they picked that up for nothing.
It was indefensible right there. The only thing they give up here is the pressure that Nien creates. Now, again, you're forced into a situation. Does Cloud9 dive the mid lane? Stand United is going to be up in about a second. Or do they go back and peel Nien? Based on having a failed dive in the past, and because Cloud9 has won most of their advantages here, actually off of CLG aggression, Cloud9 is going to go stop Nien and then go about their business.
Yeah, maybe get themselves some good deep wards along the way. You can see positioning themselves in and around the red buff. Shock Blast comes out. That was pretty close to actually stealing that away. 1 or 2 more auto attacks from Doublelift may have landed it. Sneaky's toying with the idea of a Crystal Arrow, but Nien manages to recall in time.
That was real tight. Balls was about to go check that bush, and they would have been able to kill Nien. I don't think he could have escaped that one, but made it back. No harm done, except for that giant gold lead that's happened in the last 26 minutes.
Yeah, that's up to 8,000 gold right now. All that money that was being sat on has been spent, and the thing that's phenomenal about Cloud9's position, the only members of the team that's really died has been their support. 5 of their 12, of their team's 12, 8 deaths rather, is in his hands, and the rest is just from team fights where maybe they weren't expecting the aggression.
So it's interesting that Lemonation is playing Zyra with the 5 deaths. He's just trying to access the full burst combo. That's the only way you get access to all 5 of Zyra's abilities, so playing the champion as planned.
I like that. That's a little bit of metagame knowledge there. Shock Blast comes out, that drops 20% of Doublelift's HP. He simply cannot take that poke. He's life-stealing up relatively well, got that Phantom Dancer in there as well. So if he can get onto any of the targets, Jace or Ashe, for example, they don't have much armor or HP to survive that damage.
And the lane that Nien is pushing right now as well doesn't have any immediate threat on Cloud9 right now, so they are free to poke as long as possible. And Nien has to be able to get into a position where he's threatening something, because right now, Cloud9 is just seeing a 5v4.
Yeah, they've got enough time here. The fact that the Super Minions holding the Entanso in place is going to play in his favor. He started to recall. He has the engage. Big Fat LP dives in there with a Cataclysm high. He's going to be the second member to fall in the game. This is a good fight, a good start to the fight for CLG, but simply put, they don't have the damage to turn it around. Ashe is untouched. Sneaky has not been poked in this engagement. Meteor's one more tower hit for his troubles. Will survive. They end up trading 1 for 2 and Inhibitor.
And Nien didn't actually make it in with the Shadow. He might surprise Cloud9 coming in from behind.
Going to do the best that he can, maybe able to taunt up a couple, put some damage down, gets a 2-man taunt. Lemonation manages to survive. They put one more kill on the board as Balls goes down, but the rest of the team is going to be able to escape. That's a trade that Cloud9 will be happy with.
And going back to that fight, CLG died once they dove once again. Nien trying to keep this chase going. I don't know if this is going to work out.
No, Ashe is going to be able to put a lot of damage down, especially because he was rooted in place. Thanks to Lemonation, Zyra has got some very good grasping roots down. Every time he's needed to root somebody in place, he's managed to land the ability.
Landing it at just the crucial moment, specifically on top of those perfect equalizers that have been coming down from Balls. So still good team fighting for Cloud9, and the second inhibitor that they were able to pick up there in the base is so crucial. Those are actually the 2 best inhibitors to have down if you're going for a Baron, because essentially CLG has a full-time defender now, and Nien Shenolf isn't up to be able to join the fight. So Cloud9 can take whatever they want. They're playing it super conservative, actually almost non-Cloud9-like, by taking the Dragon before the Baron.
One of the things that plays into their favor as well is just how quickly Nasus, Jace, Ashe can actually take that Baron down. They've got a lot of damage they'll be able to put out, especially if Nasus is willing to burn his ultimate for that one. Third Dragon of the game. They haven't got too much vision in the side of CLG, so that could be the limiting factor that, well, we can't see them coming, so let's play it a bit safer.
And maybe they'll just go and get some wards set up first. Interestingly enough for Lemonation, he's actually built some items this game on Zyra. He went double gold per 10 before completing that Shirelli's Reverie, finished his Sightstone, and just that many items on Lemonation is not something you almost ever see.
Likes to spend a lot of money on those wards and vision. And of course, when you do have Zyra, it's something we actually see fairly often when we see support Zyras. They do tend to build a little bit of ability power and maybe work towards some of those damaging items.
A lot of times they go for the cooldown reduction as well, because it's very important to get multiple roots out during an extended team fight. And instead of going for the Baron for Cloud9 right now, they're thinking they have a big enough lead. They know the minions will stack up towards CLG's Nexus. They might just go for inhibitor number 3.
And they don't want to run the risk of, giving away this advantage that they have. It is close to 10,000 gold right now. If they can keep CLG at bay like they have been doing on these prolonged sieges throughout the course of this map, the super minions will do the work for them.
And this is why things are so annoying for CLG, because twice CLG has tried to initiate off a turret push, and twice they failed. Cloud9 doesn't need to dive. They have the superior poke with the Jace Shock Blast and the Ashe volleys just ticking down CLG's health bars. So CLG's forced into doing something, otherwise this turret's going to go down. So frustrating, because CLG is almost forced into a losing play.
The super minions are heading towards the Nexus turret in the mid lane. Doublelift and Chouster have responded to this one as the inhibitor in the bottom lane has spawned. Cloud9 realize this, and they're making a beeline for this building.
They may as well, because what they want is CLG to come in on them. there's a thresh hook on a minion, not quite what you want. They can't initiate off that.
So a flash taunt comes up, that's high, that's been locked up. He manages to flash past the knockup. The Zyra ultimate comes down in place, knocking everybody up and zoning the rest of CLG. That is a triple kill that's been completed by Balls. The rest of the team backs off. Inhibitors picked up super minions, and here they're looking to finish.
This very well could be the game. Only Double Lift and Link trying to stop them. They might get a couple kills, but this looks grim.
Now, there's no way they'll be able to hold this one with only Link available. 4 members of Cloud9 in there fighting this one up. They're on to the Nexus, and this is going to be a victory for Cloud9.
And this was the best game Cloud9 has played against CLG this season. From start to finish, if you talk to them, they probably said they make one mistake, the overdive in mid. Aside from that, I think they played perfect.
Very patient and